Hi, welcome. I see my bakers are dropping in. Just doing a little finishing on the sweet breadsticks that I made. Today's demo is going to be sweet and savory breadsticks. All right, hey everyone. Let's see. It's 12 o'clock on the West Coast Pacific time. So I'm going to start the show. Let me just get these out of the way. Check it out. These are filled with cinnamon sugar, butter, and then I just hit them with a flat icing. So, all right. Happy Saturday, everybody, and happy baking. Welcome to today's episode of the Dough Doctor. I'm your host and baking expert, Chef Colette. And hello, everybody. And if you have baking questions, drop them into the comments. Maybe you didn't get a chance to put any questions in on Wednesday or Friday, but hey, that's okay. I can take them live, not a problem. Let me know what you're baking and let me know where you are logging on from. It's great to see you guys. All right. First, I have to give a shout out to our wonderful bakers. Our baker, Peggy, sent me some beautiful, she tagged me, well, she actually messaged me some photos of her beautiful chocolates. She had some caramel-filled hearts and then some lovely ganache squares. And then another baker, Chef and Nod 247, you guys should check out his post on the avian flu outbreak, and really thorough, great post about why eggs are so expensive. And I would like to know in the comments, are you baking less because of the higher prices and the egg shortage? Or are you just looking for maybe baking projects that use either no eggs or less eggs? Let me know in the comments, okay? As it's getting to the point where there have been news reports, now this is extreme, where some bakeries are closing because of the egg shortage. Ooh, I'm seeing some great comments about some current bakes. So I just want to finish the egg story and then we'll talk about what folks are baking this weekend. Bakers, we have to keep baking. We will find a way, which is why on the show I've been focusing more on our bread journey, because we haven't used eggs yet and we're not going to use them for this week either when we're making our breadsticks. Okay, so I'm going to give you, it's really actually good news, all right? Whoa, I lost you, sorry. Oh my God, we're live and things just happen. It's hilarious. All right, so let me regroup my thoughts. So the good news is the egg shortage will end and prices will equalize. In my area, I don't know about you guys, but Trader Joe's is still selling their basic eggs when they have them for $2.99 a dozen. Otherwise, I've seen as many as a dozen and a half go for $9.99, and that was at the dollar store. And as we all know, the dollar store is not the dollar store anymore. It's the $1.49 store. Anyway, that shocked me. So it will end, but it's not going to get better until late summer, early fall of this year. And that's because, as Chef and Nod 247 said in his excellent post, 57 million birds have been euthanized because of the avian flu outbreak. Now, it's not only the avian flu, that's the worst thing that's happening. That's driving up our egg prices. But it's also higher fuel costs. They're coming down a little bit, so that's helping. And feed is really up in price, which could be a combination of factors. So those three things. We'll have prices come down in late summer, early fall because it takes 10 months for a hen to reach maturity enough so that she can start laying eggs. So some good news, some mediocre news. Bakers, we're not going to give up. We're going to find we're going to find a way. So let me just check the posts here. Yes, Styles my Mercedes. It is because of the bird flu. Oh, one more thing about the bird flu. The CDC reported we as humans, we are not at risk for contracting the bird flu. It doesn't affect us directly, but it sure affects the chickens, and it's not a great thing at all, as we know. So just if you were, we live in a time where it's so easy to worry. So I want to let you know you can relax and you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so hi everybody. And then, Pistol Packing Mama, I agree. She has a great statement here. She says she's using her eggs. She cuts down in other groceries. So, yeah, me too. And then Rockin' Pastry Sweets has a wonderful local bakery, so that's good. So you guys are holding your own. You're doing okay. All right. But I just wanted to, kind of bring you up to date on the latest news on the bird flu epidemic and why there's shortages and these crazy high prices. Okay, so, I'm glad that you're still baking. As I said, we are not going to stop. So now let's get to our questions. Now our questions, we're deep in our bread journey. But the questions that came in this week were all about cakes. So let me just start at the top. And of course, bakers, my audience, if you have questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll get to them. Okay, so the first question is about decorating cakes. Should the cake be cold when you decorate it? No. It should be cool, not room temperature, warm and slidey, not warm. But if our cake is cold and we start to, let's say, pipe a border on the edge, because cold cakes like to sweat a little bit, that's caused by condensation, your beautiful piped border can fall right off the side of your cake. So what are we looking for? Because as bakers, we're always looking for those telltale temperature signs to let us know, can we go on to the next step? Do we need to let our product sit out for a little while? Do we need to refrigerate it? Well, the thing with cakes, if you chill a cake and you pull it out to finish decorating, what you don't want it to look like is cold butter. And we all know what cold butter looks like. So let it sit and temper a bit. And what do I mean by that? I know for most of you in the audience, you might be thinking, well, tempering, isn't that when I add hot liquid and back and forth, to equalize temperature, like if you're making a cream sauce or a creme anglaise or an ice cream base or something like that. Yes, that is tempering. But tempering is also letting product acclimate to, let's say, room temperature. And that acclimation is very important. In a bustling pastry production kitchen, where time is of the essence, it kind of happens normally. It's almost like a ballet. You'll be finishing one project and you'll pull cakes you're going to decorate and let them sit while you're finishing and you go on. Those of you who work in the industry, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But when we're baking at home and doing our own work in our own kitchens, we tend to be laser focused and we don't let that time pass maybe that 10 or 15 minutes just for the product to warm up a little bit. So bakers, I want you to consider that. Let your products, especially when you're decorating cakes, let them acclimatize, let them warm up and get over the shock of being in the refrigerator and then moving to the counter to be finished. Now, if you've frozen, let's say you've frozen a masked cake, that needs to go into the refrigerator for 8 to 12 hours to thaw, and then you're going to go to the counter. So I hope that helps. And Rock and Pastry Sweets, I have a piggyback question, so I'm going to take that. Can you put the cake in the fridge after it has the first layer of icing? Yes, that's otherwise known as crumb coating. And we always do a crumb coat, like spackling a wall before painting. And yes, that goes in the refrigerator. Now, a crumb coat, and usually we, 20, 30 minutes just for it to set up. But life happens. If you leave your crumb-coated cake in there and the butter is rock hard, the buttercream is rock hard, when you pull it out, let that acclimatize. Give it 10 or 15 minutes. When you put the next coat on, it should stick. If it shears off the cake, it begins to slide off, then let the crumb-coated cake sit another 10 or 15 minutes. It just needs more time to warm up. Okay, so great, we're clear on that. All right, and then the next question, there's been a lot of press lately, and I blame Cooks Illustrated. Well, not blame, but they brought it to a forefront in their posts, in one of their posts or blogs or books or whatever. And that was about this cake mixing method that's called reverse creaming. Like, what? We just got used to creaming method and getting our butter the right temperature and on and on. What is this reverse creaming method? Well, bakers, it's nothing new. Reverse creaming has been around for a long time. Reverse creaming, we used to call it, well, it didn't really have a name, but it's how we mixed high ratio cakes. And they were cakes usually made with emulsified vegetable shortening. And the mixing method was mixing the dry ingredients, the fat, and then adding part of the liquid. It was a time mixed, and it was the way we handled cake batters that had more sugar than flour. Well, it's 2023. Reverse creaming is a nice name for that mixing method. So a baker wrote in and said, when do I use reverse creaming method? When is that a benefit? Reverse creaming method is a benefit when there's more sugar than flour in the recipe. And you should always, bakers, if you're pulling a recipe, however the recipe author suggested you mix the cake is probably the way to go. You can always, if you've got a question, you can always message me and we can discuss this further. But that's pretty much the skinny on reverse creaming and when you would use it. Okay? All right. So that's pretty much it. We covered the news. We covered our cake questions. And wait, there was one more. I just looked down my clipboard. And transporting cakes, should they be cold or frozen? When you transport a cake, now in this time of year, we're pretty good. We don't have to worry about it. It's cold everywhere. But in the warmer months, of course, when you're transporting a cake, you want that AC on high. You don't necessarily want to transport a frozen cake because it's going to sweat. Again, that condensation is a disaster. And if you've pre-decorated, those decorations can shear right off. Just think of like, it just can be really bad. Believe me, I've had my fair share of wedding cake disasters. And it was all about transport. As a matter of fact, bakers, the great cake baker, Rose Levy Berenbaum, for those of you who have her cake Bible in your libraries, she said something very, very profound. In one of her books, it's got to be the Cake Bible, she says, there's only two people who should transport a wedding cake in a perfect world. And that's the person who baked it and the person, or, created it, or the person who paid for it. So just know it's a slippery slope, not frozen if you can help it, but definitely cold. And in the cooler months, in the warmer months, AC on high, and then try not to go too long of a difference. And rock and pastry sweets, yep, cake totes. There's some companies now making basically luggage for cakes. So check it out. And as we get more into the cake season, I'll try to keep my eyes open and get you some good sources for that cake luggage. I like that, cake luggage. That's basically what it is. And my bakers who are professionals or maybe have your home business, you always want to make sure, don't forget those packaging costs. They have to be added into the final cake. And I don't do cakes anymore. I don't know if anybody could pay me enough to do a cake these days, but charge for the aggravation as well. Don't forget that. There should be an aggravation charge. All right, we're done with questions and we can move on to demo. So for our bread journey, last week we did our bagels, and I am hoping that some of you tried the bagels. The recipe is live on the website at bakingwithcolette.com. It makes exactly 6. Now, bakers, I am being very deliberate with the recipes I'm designing for our bread, the breads that we're baking for the next several weeks. They are relatively small batches, 1 tray, so that you don't have to struggle. You don't have extra dough. You don't where am I going to go with it? It's clean. As the French would say, soigné. I am trying to write these recipes in a soigné, or a nice, clean, neat fashion, so the process is fun for you. And the breadsticks are the same. This formula is going to make 10 breadsticks. And once you master the technique, you can fill these however you like. And if you have a restaurant or maybe takeout or a pizza place that has a stuffed breadstick that you love, put it in the comments, because by the time we're done with the show, I'll be able to sort of tell you how to get that same effect. And the sky is the limit. So let me show you. A few of the bakers who logged on early saw me decorate these are filled with cinnamon sugar, very much like cinnamon rolls, but then shaped into breadsticks. And I just hit them with a little bit of flat icing to make them pop. So they smell so good, bakers. I wish you were here. But the ones that I'm going to show you for demo are going to be Parmesan and black pepper. Again, once you master the dough, and our bagels were at 58%, and our breadsticks are at 60%. So if you're baking along with these recipes, and I hope you are, then what I want you to do, bakers, is begin to feel the difference. Like, ooh, last week's dough was really tough, but this week's dough, I can manage it really nicely. I don't need any extra flour really on my work surface, but it feels a little silky smooth. So I want you, a big part of baking is intuitive. And we don't begin to work those intuition muscles with our baking, well, basically with anything, until we really feel it. So that's what I want you guys to do. I want you to feel it. So I have the dough made already. And another thing I need to know, How many of you are using, or for your baking, you're using stand mixers? And the second part of that question, do you have the dough hook? And the third part of that question, what color is your mixer? And if you've named your mixer, put that in the comments below. Come on, you guys, load those comments. All right. So this is really a beautiful dough. It's really sweet, and I think it's sexy. It's really, really lovely. It's been bulk fermenting for an hour and 15 minutes, and I actually have it in my Broad and Taylor proofer, which I do really love. You don't need that though. It would take the same amount of time sitting on the counter, maybe a little bit longer if the kitchen is on the cool side. It's very similar to the soft roll dough we were making at Thanksgiving time. All right. So these breadsticks are super easy to shape, but the one thing that I want you to have on your work surface is a peach. No, it's a peachy recipe, but I want you to have a piece of parchment paper on your work surface. So we're going to, because we're going to use the parchment to maneuver the dough. And I see these great mixer names and colors coming in. We'll review it at the end of the show. It's just awesome. All right, so there's our dough bakers. And again, I wish you were here. I'd make you all feel it because it's just beautiful. Well, you are here, but I wish I had you here so you could feel it too. All right, so now I'm just gonna dust this with a little bit of flour, and it's nice and relaxed. All right, and what I'm gonna do, actually I'm gonna take my glasses off because when I'm looking down, I have double vision. Double vision. Who was that? Anyway, somebody tell me in the comments. I'm going to roll this out to a 10 by 14 inch rectangle, approximately. The main thing is, just like when we're making cinnamon rolls, we're going to square off our corners and we're going to straighten our sides. And it's really quite perfect. And so you don't really need to have a lot of flour. Remember, when we're rolling out any dough, whether it's a pie crust or a yeasted dough like this, we want to work with the flour, not in the flour. And the nice thing about the parchment paper is I can kind of lean into it and get some leverage. Now I'm going off the rails shape-wise, so I'm just going to get in here and straighten things out. The dough is going to be about a 1/4 inch thick. Okay, so about that 10 by 14. I have shredded Parmesan cheese, but there's no reason, well, you could use cheddar. You could have some finely diced jalapeno. You could spread this with tomato sauce lightly and then do mozzarella and make pizza breadsticks. So what are your favorite stuffed breadsticks when you go out? And I'm sorry, you guys, I see some requests, but I cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm going to have to just kind of keep going. So if you have questions, please put them in the comments and I will get to them. Okay, remember one of our most important baking tools is our yardstick cut in half. So what did I say? I said 14 by 10. Look at that, I'm there, woohoo! But I gotta shore up my sides. Precision does matter, okay? And if you look at it and you're like, I'm a little lumpy over here, you can just take your pin and you can just, you know, flatten it out. Show that dough who's boss. All right, so now what I'm going to do, you can paint this with a little water, but I'm going to actually use my spray bottle. This is my bread-only spray bottle. Actually, bakers, that's a lie. I use this for ironing as well, but it is filtered water in my spray bottle. Okay, now the next thing you're going to do is you're going to cover 2/3 of the dough with Parmesan cheese. You can use Asiago, you can use Grana Padano, any dry cheese will work. And, you know, I did mention the pizza sauce, and I did mention the mozzarella. So what you could do is you want to go thin on the sauce and then use a full fat mozzarella. Well, I guess it doesn't, I shouldn't be so picky, but they're just going to be cheesy and stringy. They'll be wonderful, but they'll be a little bit different. They'll be good though. If you have kids, they'll lose their minds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to press my cheese into the dough. Clean my rolling pin. All right, you with me? Let's recap. I rolled the dough out 10 by 14. I spritzed it with a little bit of water. You could also paint it with water. You could use egg wash if you wanted, but we're conserving our eggs for other I am for other baking projects. And then the next thing you're going to do is the uncheesed edge. I just cheesed 2/3. Oh my God, I almost forgot the ground black pepper. Isn't that the prettiest peppermill you ever saw? And depending on how much pepper you like, you can add more. You could also make a garlic butter and paint this with garlic butter. Like, the sky's the limit. And then I'm going to use the parchment paper to fold over the unfilled side. Okay, so the parchment paper really helps. And then I'm going to fold up this way. So now the filled side is going up and over. And I'm actually going to give it a little pinch. Pinch, pinch, pinch. So this is looking good. And I'm just going to take a titch of flour. Just a little bit of flour. Ooh, look, it's snowing. And then I'm going to just flatten a little bit. Now this has to sit. That's it. You can see I've activated the gluten, so it's not going to roll out anymore. So I'm going to let this sit for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to answer questions. We'll talk about what we've named our mixers, and then I'm going to show you how to cut these and twist these. I already have a tray baked, so that'll pretty much be the end of our show once I shape them. So they just need 5 minutes, though, for the gluten to relax. Because remember, bakers, whenever we're using wheat flour and we add liquid and we manipulate the dough in some way, it could be with the mixer, it could be kneading by hand, it could be mixing a pie crust, whatever it is, we have activated gluten. And when gluten is tight, and I know some of you have heard me say this because I recognize the names, when gluten is tight, it's like violin strings or guitar strings or banjo strings on the instrument. Tight! And then when the gluten has just a little time to relax, and it's all about time, then it's like rubber bands on a pile of rubber bands on a table, you know, whew. And then we can roll it out. But if we fight the gluten, then it's going to come back to haunt us. It might work, You might stress, you might strain, you might get it, but it's going to come back and haunt you in the oven. When it comes out, that croissant that you fought is going to shrink. The breadsticks are not going to be as elegant. They're going to look pulled, and rolls will be like that. So there'll be stress. And one of the reasons we bake, bakers, is to alleviate stress and be in our happy place. So when I say let the dough rest for 5 to 7 minutes, set a timer, and that's what we are going to do. So I do have a question. Yes. So the liquid into the flour is the percent. Wait. Wait a second. So this is 59% hydration. So it is the liquid amount, 230 divided into the flour, which is 400, gives us 59% hydration. Great question, JG111. All right, let's talk about those mixers. Let's see. Rockin' Pastry Sweets has a beautiful gray mixer. MAD, Mo, light turquoise, and the mixer's name is Jack. Emerald Cupcake Los Angeles, I see your beautiful work all the time, has a silver stand mixer named the Tornado. That's awesome. JG111, all black, all 3 black, no names. And then Rockin' Pastry Sweets. Oh, this is a great name. Parchment paper. That's awesome. BB Cab, Black KitchenAid Professional 600 with a dough hook. Awesome, you guys. Now, my next question, because I'm going to go ahead and roll this out in just a minute. Yes or no, do you buy pizza dough or do you guys make pizza dough? And that's a tease for next week's show. Again, my goal is to make our bread journey accessible. I don't know, there's been so much talk about self-care. I think as bakers, one of the best self-care practices we can do is to bake our own bread. We know what's in it. We control the flour. We control everything. And the house smells great. It's just a great way to show yourself and your families that you love them and you love yourself. So, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love everybody else, anybody, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean. Okay, so, oh yes, it was Foreigner. Oh, I loved Foreigner. Thank you, MAD Mo, Mad. MAD Mo. And then, Pistol Packing Mama. Wow, her tan one is 40 years old. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Okay, great. Pizza dough. So what I would like to do next week for class, we are going to make pizza dough as part of our hydration journey. All right. And I'm going to talk about how to ferment it so that it's so easy to use. You'll be shaping dough like a pro in no time. So that'll be next week. We'll make pizza. All right. That was about 5 minutes. There's nothing wrong with buying it in a pinch. I don't want you to think, it's totally fine, but it doesn't take that long. And I'll be full of great tips on pizza dough next week. All right. And recently I got a great pizza dough from Chef Daniel, so I'll be sharing with you guys. I'll be sharing that with you guys too. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually spin my dough around so that the fold is facing you guys and the seam is facing me. And I'm going to roll this out to 6 inches. Whoops. And there you go. You saw my ceiling. Okay. And then I'm going to cut this dough into 1-inch strips. And of course, I'm going to use my yardstick cut in half because right here, this is a perfect inch. And if your corners, if your dough isn't like nice and straight, it's not fragile. It's not your grandma's bone china. You can pull it a little bit. All right, now, don't be shocked because I know you all think that I'm going to grab a pizza wheel, but I'm not. I'm going to cut the strips with my bench scraper because I don't want to stretch the dough. So I'm just cutting through here. You could use you could use a chef knife too if you wanted, but I usually don't have a knife on my station unless I'm cooking. Then I'm all about knives, but not here. The bench scraper is pretty much our de facto knife. We can, you can do a lot with it. You can chop nuts with it. You can really go crazy. Now, as I do this process and show you how to shape, is this inspiring you? Can you think of any ideas for some sweet breadsticks you'd like to try or some savory ones? Nothing coming in yet. Well, you could paint this dough with pesto. You could use tapenade. So many things. All right, now, I just want to show you here what you're going to do. And as a matter of fact, you could let the strips sit for a couple minutes. Always cover your dough. Let the strips sit for a couple minutes and then do this twist. But I want to get you back into it's Saturday afternoon. I'm hoping you're getting set up to do some baking. So I want to get you back to your kitchens. So what you want to do is you've got it flat. And you're just going to lift and drop, lift and drop, lift and drop until it's twisted. There's no gaps. Then what you're going to do, you're going to take your right hand and you're going to roll up and your left hand is going to roll down. Okay? And then it's not terribly long and the gluten's kind of tight. If you want them a little longer, let them sit at this stage for a few more minutes, and then you're going to put them on your baking tray. And I have a baking tray lined with a Silpat. You could use parchment paper, but remember, bakers, we always want to line our trays. We don't want our product on bare metal. Okay? So I'll do one more, and then I'm going to let you go. Please message me those baking questions so we can have a lively discussion next week. Thank you for the questions for this week. And then next week, we're going to talk about pizza dough. And when you see this breadstick recipe, yes, the butter and the olive oil are correct. They're both in this dough. One more time, pick up the strip, lay it flat. You're going to just twist it, lift and drop, lift and drop, lift and drop. And then when it looks like this, you're going to take your right hand, roll up, and your left hand and roll down. So that's it. Bakers, I love seeing you on Saturdays. It's so much fun to connect and talk about baking and answer your questions. If you make these breadsticks, please tag me. If you make the bagels, please tag me. I love to see your beautiful work. And please join me next week for another episode of the Dough Doctor, where I'll answer your questions and we'll tackle pizza dough. Happy baking, everybody. Bye. Oh, wait, one question before we go. How long can you keep the dough in the freezer? You know what? I'm going to talk about that in the blog post. Not too long, 1 month. All right. Bye, everybody.